Alright guys, welcome back to Uncle Jerk's complicated and convoluted comic book character corner. We're talking about Ghost Rider. Last episode we talked about the Magazine Enterprises 50s version of the Ghost Rider. In the 60s, after the success of the initial Marvel wave, when the Marvel era began in earnest, they were looking for characters from anywhere that they could. Recycled characters, characters they could buy, characters they could kind of rip off, whatever. And when Dick Ayers approached Lee, knowing that the Ghost Rider name of the series for Magazine Enterprises that he had worked on in the 50s, see, I told you we were going to be talking about Dick again, was going to be up for grabs because Magazine Enterprises wasn't going to be renewing their copyright on it. Lee agreed. It was a good name, and he was like, yeah, go ahead, do something with it. It only lasted for 7 issues. Really, they didn't do much new with the character. They changed the origin completely, but not at all. At least they had good sense to change his name from Rex Fury or Calico Kid to Carter Slade. Even when I was a kid, man, when I heard Carter Slade, I was like, oh yeah, that's a badass, man. That's Carter Slade. He's a badass. And he's kind of like the first iteration of Ghost Rider where we get some of the recognizable things about Ghost Rider that become mainstays of this series. In my conspiracy theory video about the spirits of vengeance and the Great Spirit and stuff, I'll talk about this more later. But as we talk about the Great Spirit, it's my opinion that the Great Spirit is actually just the Native American way of interpreting what Christians interpreted as demons and angels and spirits of vengeance. So kind of keep that in mind as we move along. Have your own opinion. I'm not telling you it's right or it's wrong, anything like that. That's why it's in the conspiracy video. I'm just telling you that's my opinion, and like, keep that in mind, because why are we talking about this character? Just because I think this stuff is all connected. I think that they tie together. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. This will help you decide. So Carter Slade is a school teacher, and he responds to a newspaper ad. He lives in Ohio, and he's going to go across country to the West and teach at a school. And on his way, he comes across a settlement that's being attacked with what looks like Native Americans, and they're slaughtering these people. Turns out they're not actually Native Americans. They're these dudes running a real estate scam dressed up as Native Americans. But Carter, he's a good guy, so he sees this going on, and he's like, I can't really watch this go down without doing anything. It turns out that I think he went to like Oxford or something like that, because they say he's a boxing champion, and he gets out, and man, he kicks the crap out of a couple of dudes. He gets in some good shots. Like, he's a pretty badass for not being armed or anything. But eventually they shoot him up real good, and they leave him for dead, slaughter the rest of the settlement, and leave. After they're gone, this kid crawls out of the rubble, Jamie Jacobs. Turns out that he has hidden through the entire attack. He's managed to survive. He's crying over his dead family. That's when he notices Carter is still breathing. He's like, I've got to save this dude's life. I got to do my best to save this dude's life. So he throws him up on a horse, and he tries to take him into town to go to a hospital. But unfortunately, he just watched his family get like slaughtered in front of him. He's totally up, and he goes the wrong direction, and he gets lost. But by the time that he figures out that he's lost, he knows it's going to be way too late. And that's when they come across this Native American settlement, and they meet this shaman named Flaming Star. And Flaming Star hears the story, and he's like, hey man, seems like this dude's a good guy. Bring him on in, I'll see what I can do. And they say that he uses like every potion and cure that he has, but that it doesn't work. And it's like, hey man, I'm so sorry, but I don't think he's gonna make it. He just kind of lets him be, but Carter doesn't die. And then on the 3rd day, his fever breaks, he miraculously wakes up, he's totally fine. And Flaming Star's like, I knew it, man. you're the great champion. And Carter Slade's like, what? So Flaming Star is called Flaming Star because he went out on this vision quest years before. On his vision quest, he saw a meteor fall to the earth, and it was a trail of phosphorescent dust behind it. Then he has a vision of this thing that he calls the Great Spirit, and the Great Spirit tells him that he'll send him a great champion, and that this champion will walk between the land of the dead. Flaming Star is like, you are obviously the great champion that the Great Spirit told me about. We've got to get you the instruments of the Great Spirit so you can go out and fight evildoers and right wrongs and just be a force for justice. And Carter Slade doesn't question this at all. He's like, okay, what are we doing? When the meteor fell to Earth, the Great Spirit also told Flaming Star to collect the phosphorescent dust and to give it to whoever is the great champion. He also tells the Braves that they have to go out and get this thing called the Ghost Horse, and all the Braves go out and they try all day to get this thing. So they give up and they're like, man, we're really sorry, we were gonna give you this crazy ghost horse, but now we can't really do any of that because we can't catch it. And Carter Slade's like, don't worry, I played polo in college. And he just goes over and literally horse whispers to it, and it's just totally chill, and he gets on it, rides it over. At this point, any of the Braves, the rest of the tribe, anything, that had any questions about whether this guy's the great champion or whatever, they're like, no, this dude's definitely the great champion. He played polo. That let him whisper to a horse. No, something else is going on here. And so they bring him back to the village, and they're like, hey, take your time, get better. They nurse him back to health. And in this original telling of the origin, I know he gives him the horse, and I know he gives him the dust. I don't think he even gives him the white outfit. And when they leave, Carter comes up with the idea of putting the phosphorescent powder onto the white outfit to make it even more ghostly and ethereal appearing than the Magazine Enterprises version of Ghost Rider from years before. In later versions of the origin, mentions of the origin and stuff later on in the Marvel continuity for this version of Ghost Rider and the Phantom Riders and stuff, Flaming Star has already made the suit and covered it in the dust and gives that to him as kind of like part of a whole outfit to go out and fight crime. They never give Ghost Rider powers. He's still playing on that supernatural element, so that makes more sense to me. He also gets this thing called the Lariat of Night. As a kid, I couldn't figure out, like, what is a Lariat of Night? Now I know it is a whip painted black so you can't see it at night. He does that same kind of levitation tricks and that kind of stuff. But now he can disarm guys and they never even know what hit him. It's also more effective now because he's got the phosphorescent cape, and the phosphorescent powder that covers him can reflect light thousands of times. So it actually does make him appear to be pretty ghostly. He's like pretty creepy. He gets this projection lantern. The projection lantern is just like this lantern that allows him to project pictures of himself into other places. They probably should have also given him the ability or power to throw his voice, because it always seems like the projected images are talking. That's like where the voice is coming from or whatever, even though Carter's never by them. Because then the bad guys shoot the apparition, The bad guys are like, oh no, we can't kill him because he's a ghost. He's the Ghost Rider. Oh no. He doesn't get his goggles back, though. The reflecting goggles that were so bad from the magazine, and doesn't get those. That won't come back around until the Danny Ketch years, believe it or not. As I said, this version of Ghost Rider only lasted for 7 issues. Got canned. Didn't get rid of the character, though. They stuck him into a series called Western Gunfighters Volume 2. He kind of shared the series with a couple other people. In issue 6, he is fighting this guy. This marshal from out of town shows up named Lincoln, and it turns out that Lincoln is Carter's. They haven't seen each other in years, but it's his long lost brother, and they have this pretty big reunion. Unfortunately, Lincoln's in town to deal with the same guy that Ghost Rider is dealing with, because obviously Lincoln's a marshal, so he's hunting him, and Ghost Rider, of course, gets embroiled in this big fight. And in issue 6, Lincoln is with Carter, who is dressed up as Ghost Rider, and he doesn't know he's Ghost Rider, obviously. They're down in this mine, and the bad guy shoots out one of the support beams, and this huge pile of rocks is going to crush Lincoln. Carter comes, he pushes him out of the way and saves his life, but he's crushed under the rocks. Lincoln, he hears under the rocks, and he's like, I recognize that voice. He takes off the mask, and he's like, oh God, Carter, man. He takes his body. He doesn't want anybody to know he's Ghost Rider, so he takes the costume, he hides it along the road as he goes along, and goes back to town. He takes the body. And next issue opens up, and it's the funeral for Carter Slade, and Lincoln's there, and his lady's there, and the sheriff of the town is there. He's like, see, I knew he was Ghost Rider, now he's dead. And then all of a sudden in the background, the Ghost Rider in full outfit rides across the horizon, and Lincoln's like, what the are there two of these dudes? Did my brother not die? What the hell is going on? So he gets on his horse. He goes to chase this dude down. In his thought bubble, he says something to the effect of, this dude can't really be trying to get away from me because he's not riding well enough. And eventually he does catch up with him. And it turns out that this Ghost Rider is actually leading him to a place where they can talk. And when they get there, he takes off his mask, and it's Jamie Jacobs. And Jamie's like, look, Hamilton, I know you're Lincoln's brother. Lincoln was Ghost Rider. He died as Ghost Rider. It means so much to him. He gave his life for it. You can't let the Ghost Rider mantle die. It has to live on. It's not just Carter. It's super important. And Lincoln's like, no. I think my brother was crazy. I'm a marshal. I want to serve the law. It's not my bag. Jamie gets super pissed, man. Jamie probably knew Carter better than Lincoln, you know. He ran around presumably for a few years as the only dude who knew Carter was Ghost Rider. He's super upset, and he's trying to get Lincoln to understand, and Lincoln, he just can't get it into his head. Lincoln is like, I'm not doing it, and Jamie's like, fine, I suck. I am totally unprepared for this, but I will go out and I'll be Ghost Rider. And in that same issue, Lincoln is trying to stop, I think it's a stagecoach robbery, but he's in a fight and in a shootout with a couple of dudes, and Ghost Rider shows up. Obviously Jamie, Ghost Rider, shows up, helps him, and he take out like everybody except for one guy, and the last guy caps Jamie twice, like straight in the chest, man. Jamie's laying there dying, and he's dying in Lincoln's arms, and he begs Lincoln again. He's like, dude, you have to understand that this is more important. Like, I'm not upset I'm dying. I'm upset I can't be the Ghost Rider anymore because the Ghost Rider's that important. Lincoln is like so moved by this that he's like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna be the Ghost Rider. Picks up the mantle, and then he's not the series anymore. There was a series called Knight Rider. For anybody who doesn't know, that's a KKK thing, a Ku Klux Klan thing. And I don't mean this in any kind of way, but the guys who run Marvel are Jewish guys from New York. They obviously have no idea about the stupid terminology. So as soon as they find out, like, oh God, okay, we can't do that. They're like, no, not Knight Rider, the Phantom Rider, because they around this time launch Ghost Rider. The Phantom Riders actually become almost a family affair. Like, it's a crest or a mantle that's kind of passed along, like the Ghost Rider mantle will be later on in its evolution. It kind of goes on to be a mainstay of some kind in the Marvel Universe. After Lincoln, there is Hamilton, and then after Hamilton, there's Jamie and JT Slade. So there's a number of other guys, but Lincoln really didn't show up for another 15 years. In like 1987, he showed up in West Coast Avengers. And for anybody who doesn't know, West Coast Avengers was kind of like Avengers for your dad. It didn't have like a bunch of the flagship characters. That had more B-level characters that not a lot of people wanted to write for, so there was a lot more freedom with what you could do with the series. And they took the idea of Hank Pym smacking his wife, real people, to a whole new level. And man, when we see Lincoln next, it is a deranged storyline. Next episode, we're going to be talking about what happens with Lincoln when he shows back up. We're going to be talking about his descendant, Hamilton. And then we're going to be hitting on Jamie and JT. They're all Phantom Riders. Why am I going to go on and talk about Phantom Riders? I know you want to hear about Ghost Riders, because these guys have direct interactions with the Ghost Riders, and it's in important ways. Johnny Blaze, Ghost Rider, going through time travel, he meets Carter Slade, and when he meets him in his thought bubble, he says something to the effect of, this guy isn't a Ghost Rider, he's not a demon, but I feel very akin to him. We are somehow connected. And then many years later, in this huge awesome splash page that I found that has 100 or so Ghost Riders, I mean a ton, it's not all, but it's a ton of them, there is a Phantom Rider there. I think I know which Phantom Rider that is. I'll hit on that in the conspiracy theory video again, but it shows I'm not digging, I'm not reaching, this stuff is all connected, it all pulls from each other. And if you just know more about these Phantom Riders, like, it's not a huge chunk of stuff. If you just know about these Phantom Riders, when they interact and when timelines overlap and that kind of stuff, I don't have to do an aside to tell you, oh yeah, hey, let's take a 10-minute break from this to go talk about Phantom Riders and stuff. It's just easier and simpler this way. When I was doing research on this stuff, there's so many Ghost Riders now, I just cannot possibly talk about them all, but I'm going to hit on as many of the main ones and important ones, in my opinion, to the main narrative and mythos and idea of what Ghost Rider is and has become and is becoming at this point with Robbie Reyes, which is very interesting. We'll talk about all that stuff. There's just so much of it. So I'm going to do my best, but if there's somebody you want to know about specifically, please let me know. I will do my best. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you do, hit the like button for me down there. If you really like what you saw, hit the subscribe button. And remember, keep reading comics.